everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to do a tag video and I'm super excited for this tag because I was tagged by Andrew over at Andrew's Wizardly Reads to do the Rob and Hobb book tag. And most of you know I am a huge Rob and Hobb fan. The Realm of the Elderlings is one of my favorite series of all time and I haven't even finished the series yet, so that definitely says a lot. So I knew that this was going to be my next video, that I wanted to do this tag straight away. Of course, I will link Andrew's video down below, as well as the video of the original creator, Miss Richards Reads. But without further ado, let's get into the first prompt. The first prompt is the skill, and if you are new to the Realm of the Elderlings, this is basically one of the magical abilities or magic systems in this world. And the question that is attached to it is, what is your favorite magical ability? Now, this is pretty difficult to answer because there are so many amazing ones, especially if you read fantasy. But the one that came to the top of my head is one that is explained in Kings of Paradise by Richard Nell, the first book in the Ash and Sand trilogy. And in this book, there is a character who can leave his body, or his soul can leave his body. And his body can continue doing some basic task, I suppose. But at the same time, his soul can read a book or observe something and basically be a fly on the wall somewhere else. And I think that this is something that can come in very handy, that has a lot of different uses out of it that you might not even think about, but also just in our world, this would be amazing to have. So for me, that's the most neat magical ability, and yeah, that's the one that came to mind immediately. And you have some other ones in this book as well, by the way, which are also pretty exciting. So if you're looking for a next grimdark read, this one is amazing. The next prompt is Fitz, so the main character in the Realm of the Elderlings. And of course, attached to this one is, what is a book that made you cry? Now, I cry in a lot of books, or while reading a lot of books, because I'm just really emotional like that. And I have cried with all of the Realm of the Elderlings books, but I'm not going to choose one of those books for these prompts, because then each of the prompts would be one of the Realm of the Elderlings books. So another book that made me cry quite recently is The Lost Queen by Signy Pike. This is historical fantasy. It's set in medieval England at the time of the Picts and stuff like that, and I really liked this one. It's for fans of Juliet Merlier. I said this a couple of times before, but it's really hard-hitting. It's also quite character-driven, so you feel connected to the characters, and a lot of bad stuff happened to them. It's a coming-of-age story, so you immediately feel invested in that character, you care for that character, and then when horrible things happen, I cry. That's just what I do. But again, really like this book. All of the books that I chose for this prompt are, of course, books that I enjoyed, but this one was an emotional read. The third prompt is connected to The Fool, and the question here is, what is your favorite friend group or just a friendship that you really enjoyed reading about? And for me, that is the one in the Song of the Shattered Sands series by Bradley P. Bolio. I've only read the first two books, the first one being 12 Kings or 12 Kings of Sharakai, and I really liked the friendship between our main character here and her childhood friend. And what I liked here is that it's a friendship between a girl and a boy, and even though there might be some tension, it's not romantic in any sense of the way, and you have a lot of tension because of other things. They are basically at different parts of a conflict, but they still care for each other, and that's what I really liked here, that this is a friendship that doesn't really come easy, but they are there for each other when they need to, and I enjoyed reading about that friendship between a man and a woman without it being immediately romanticized or it ending up there. This is just a platonic friendship and I'm here for it. The next prompt is connected to Althea, and the question here is, who is your favorite protagonist? Now again, I would have answered Fitz, but if I can't choose him, then I would choose the next best thing, and that is Valen Alsorna from the Raven's Shadow trilogy by Anthony Ryan, so the first book being Bloodsong. And I think that he's quite similar to Fitz almost. This is also a coming-of-age story. This is also about a boy who faces a lot of hardship, who feels alone at times, and who is really good deep down, but needs to make very difficult decisions to stay true and stay loyal to somebody that he committed himself to. Very much like Fitz, but it takes a very different tone, of course, in this one. And I liked him in Bloodsong, but I also liked his story after that, so that's why he, at this point, is my favorite protagonist besides Fitz. Then we have a prompt dedicated to Ophelia, who is one of the secondary characters in the Lifeship Traders trilogy. And the question here is, Who is your favorite funny character or sassy character? Or you could also name a funny book. Now I'm going to go with a sassy character, and that is Lady Evara in the Raise the Sands standalone fantasy novel by Sarah Beth Durst. Now she actually reminded me a lot of Ophelia. She's also a secondary character, and I think that I would have been annoyed by her if she was the main character, if I was continuously in her head. But as a secondary character, it's just fun to have somebody who relieves the tension a little bit and who's just funny and sassy. And I must say that Sarah Beth Durst has this in her Raise the Sands novel, but she also has it in The Bone Maker, which is her new novel, so maybe she has it in a lot of her books, and that sassy character, I like it. That's one of the maybe tropes, you could say, in some fantasy scenes that I quite enjoy. The next prompt is for the 6 Duchies, and the question here is, what is your favorite magical world or setting? So for this I chose The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles, and I just love this world and how cozy it feels almost. Of course you have some bad aspects as well, but you basically start as a member of, or the main character starts as a member of a traveling band of performers, and so they travel from city to perform and to sing, to act, and it just feels so cozy. And I keep imagining traveling through woods with that very diverse group of people, and that just feels very cozy. But then after that you have a university setting where people learn how to become wizards, so it almost feels like Harry Potter, but it feels older, medieval, and just more magical in my opinion, because you don't really have that portal-like fantasy that Harry Potter has. So the feeling that I have with all of these settings is just cozy. And if anything, I love school settings, and if it's then mixed with a medieval feeling, I'm here for it. So this is, I had to think a little bit about this prompt, but when I went over The Name of the Wind in my bookshelves, I immediately knew, yes, this is definitely my favorite fantasy world. Then we have a prompt dedicated to Nighteyes, and the question here is, of course, who is your favorite animal companion? It's Nighteyes, but if I have to choose anyone else, it's Salovey from the Winternight trilogy by Catherine Arden. So the first book here is Baron the Nightingale. I'm actually going to reread this trilogy, by the way, because Evie is going to host a read-along for this trilogy starting in December, if I'm not mistaken, and I will link all the details down below. It's an amazing trilogy, so if you haven't read it yet, please join us for the read-along. But Salovey he's just so precious. He's a horse, but he is in his magical... He's not really a horse, he's a magical horse. And in this magical being's world, he's actually pretty young, and you can feel it. He's like a young stallion. And I just love how he treats the main character and how their banter goes back and forth, and he's just the most precious boy. I think that Nighteyes is my favorite, but come to think of it, maybe Salovey. Maybe I like Salovey a little bit more than Nighteyes, and that says a lot. Then we have a prompt for Brashen, and that is, who is your favorite love interest? Now, without a shadow of a doubt, this is Red from Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Merlier. He is my favorite love interest by a mile. I didn't really have to think twice. The romance here is my favorite romance of all time. This is my favorite book of all time. You've heard me talk about this a lot, so I'm not going to make it any longer than it needs to be. Pick it up, especially if you love romance and if you hate love triangles and you just want a good book. You need to read this. And then we have a prompt dedicated to Kyle, and that is, who is your favorite villain? Now, I always find this a little bit difficult, especially if you see what the next prompt is, but a favorite villain is a little bit distant from the rest of the story. He needs to be the bad guy, in my opinion. And for me, the Lord Ruler in the Mistborn trilogy, and then especially the Final Empire, of course, the first book in that trilogy, is ideal for that, because he's bad, and you get to know more and more about him as the story progresses, and he's just that traditional bad guy, but with enough twists that make it interesting to read about. And yeah, I really liked his character as a villain. So maybe this is my favorite one. I don't really read a lot of books with your typical villains. You have a lot of characters that are just bad, but as a real villain and a traditional villain, I think that this is my favorite one. But I don't really have a lot of favorites in this category, I suppose. So in that same vein, this prompt is one that I like a little bit more, and that is one dedicated to Kennit, and that is a character or a book that you love to hate. Now I'm going to go with a character that I love to hate, and you could say that these two are also villains, because the first one is Ramsay Bolton, of course, in A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, and the other one is also from this series, and that is Joffrey Baratheon. Now, of the two, Ramsay is the one who's clearly the psychopath of the two. I mean, both are bad, but Joffrey is just a little brat who has been made that way by his family, and I think that he's doesn't really have the mental capacity to understand what he's doing, while Ramsay's evil. Something's wrong with that man. And both of them you just love to hate. And whenever their POV is presented in the story, you just know that something bad is going to happen. So those are two of the characters basically that I love to hate, both in the books as in the TV show. But believe me, Ramsay in the books, he's worse. And then the last prompt already, and this is for Vivacia. So who is a favorite character that is also a sentient object? Now I have two, but mentioning both of those would be extremely big spoilers for the books. So the first one is in Sister Song by Lucy Holland, and the other one is in Wolfskin by Juliette Marillier, but I won't mention those because spoilers. But one that is definitely not a spoiler is Nightblood in Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Nightblood is a sword. He is definitely sentient. He has a lot of ideas about what's right and wrong, and they might be a little bit different from what everybody else thinks, but he's a lot of fun. And yeah, if it needs to be non-spoiler, this is going to be my favorite one. And then lastly, of course, I am supposed to tag some people, but I've seen a ton of people being tagged. Basically everybody that I know that has read The Realm of the Elderlings is tagged, or it seems to be, and I can't really keep track of who is tagged and who isn't. So I'm just going to keep it simple. If you've read The Realm of the Elderlings and you haven't been tagged yet, you are now. So consider yourself tagged, and please let me know in the comments down below if you are going to do this tag because of me or because of somebody else, so I can watch out for your answers. Please let me know what your answers would be if you're not going to do the video, and what you thought of mine. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye!